Welcome to The Cursed Land, Shadows of the Forgotten. This is a story of mystery, fear, and courage. A journey into darkness where every step could mean life or death. Prepare yourself for a tale that will chill your soul and ignite your hope. The rain had just stopped when the convoy of 3 black jeeps veered off the main road and into the dense woods of the Carpathian Mountains. Tall pine trees swayed gently under the gray sky, their silhouettes stretching like claws across the muddy path. In the leading vehicle, Dr. Leonard Voigt adjusted his glasses and stared at the GPS screen, though the signal had died an hour ago. "We're close," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. Mara, the German journalist sitting beside him, looked out through the foggy window. "It doesn't feel close to anything. It feels like we're driving into the void." Behind them, the other vehicles followed in silence. The group had been traveling for nearly 6 hours, heading deep into Romanian territory in search of Alba Valea, a village that had vanished from all official records over 200 years ago. No map showed it, no road led to it. Only fragments of oral stories remained, tales whispered by old mountain villagers about a cursed place, swallowed by the forest. In the third car, Sophie tightened her jacket around her. The young French student had never left Western Europe before. This trip was both exciting and terrifying. She glanced over at Dr. Elin, the Romanian anthropologist, who was flipping through an old leather-bound journal. "You think we'll find anything real out here?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "What we find depends on what we're willing to believe." Suddenly, the convoy halted. Radu, the elderly guide, stood in front of the path, pointing to an overgrown trail. "This is it," he said. "This is where the road ends." Nathan, the group's mechanic, grumbled as he stepped into the mud. "It's not a road, it's a death trap." The group unloaded equipment and backpacks. The sun was already dipping behind the hills. They had a few hours of light left. As they walked into the forest, silence swallowed them. No bird song, no insects, only the soft crunch of leaves beneath their boots. Jonas, the cameraman, filmed everything. "This is gold," he whispered, panning slowly across the tree line. An hour later, they arrived at a strange stone archway covered in moss, half buried in earth and vines. Symbols, worn down by time, were etched along the top. "It's the old border marker," Arlene said. "Beyond this point, we step into the forgotten." Leonard hesitated before stepping through. Something in the air shifted, colder, heavier. As the last member of the group crossed the arch, a raven let out a low, croaking cry. The forest, once still, suddenly felt alive and watching. The campfire cracked and hissed under the weight of damp wood. The expedition team sat in a loose circle just beyond the stone archway, their tents half pitched under the leaning trees. Night had fallen swiftly, and with it, a thick, unnatural fog that dulled sound and dimmed light. Jonas reviewed his footage under a tarp, the camera's screen casting a bluish glow on his face. He paused the video and frowned. "Hey guys," he called, "come look at this." The group gathered around as Jonas replayed the footage of them crossing the stone arch. "There," he pointed, freezing the frame. In the corner of the screen, behind Sophie as she stepped through, was a shadow. It had no shape, no detail, just a tall smear of black between the trees, like someone, or something, was standing there. "No one else was behind me," Sophie whispered. Leonard rubbed his temples. "Could be camera distortion." "It moved," Jonas insisted. "Watch again." He played it in slow motion. As Sophie passed through, the shadow shifted. It leaned forward slightly as though watching her. No one spoke. A twig snapped in the distance. Everyone froze. Radu stood up with his flashlight. Probably a deer. But when he swept the beam across the trees, the light bent strangely, like it was being absorbed by the fog. "I don't like this," Mara muttered, clutching her coat. Later that night, while the others slept restlessly, Nathan got up to relieve himself near the edge of the camp. He moved behind a tree, muttering curses about the cold. As he zipped up, he heard something, a soft rustling behind him. He turned quickly. Nothing. Then he saw them, bare footprints in the mud, leading deeper into the woods. Human-shaped, but elongated. Fresh? Nah, no way. But curiosity tugged at him. He followed the trail with a headlamp, just a few meters in. The footprints ended. In their place, a deep hole, as if something had punched through the earth from below. Nathan leaned in to inspect. Suddenly, something grabbed his ankle from inside the hole. He screamed, but it was muffled by the fog. When the team awoke the next morning, Nathan's tent was open, empty, and beside it, just a single footprint, bare and soaked in black mud. The air the next morning was heavier. The fog had not lifted. It had thickened, pressing against the skin like wet cloth. The forest around them, once alive with birdsong, was dead silent. Nathan must have wandered off drunk, Leonard said, his voice clipped and tense. No, he was scared last night, Sophie replied. Something pulled him. I could feel it. Radu examined the muddy footprint next to Nathan's empty tent. He knelt down, frowning. This isn't Nathan's. Too narrow. Toes too long. Jonas had been silent since dawn. He held his camera but hadn't filmed. Instead, he stared at the trees as if expecting them to blink. We should leave, Mara said, her voice barely above a whisper. But Leonard shook his head. We came here to investigate. If something's happening, we need to understand it. And so they pressed on. By midday, they reached a gnarled clearing where the trees grew in a perfect circle around a raised stone slab. Moss and vines covered it, but it was unmistakably carved, covered in symbols none of them recognized. A ritual site? Sophie guessed. No birds, Radu muttered. No insects either. Then they heard it. A whisper, soft and low, like wind moving through dead leaves. But there was no wind. Did you hear that? Mara asked. Everyone nodded slowly. Jonas turned his head toward the trees. It said my name. Sophie grabbed his arm. Don't answer. Whatever it is, it's listening. Then the leaves above shuddered, though the air was still. Something moved in the canopy, quick and quiet. Jonas lifted his camera, recording. Behind the lens, he saw it, a pale face peeking from the branches, high above. Too white, too still. Then it was gone. I think it's following us, he whispered. That night, Mara stayed up, sitting near the fire, clutching a carved wooden talisman she brought from home. A family charm, she said. For protection. As the others slept, the whispers returned. Closer now. Mara, the leaves rustled with no wind. She stood up, scanning the dark. Who's there? Silence. Then, a voice from behind her, a perfect copy of her own. Help me. Mara turned and screamed. The others jolted awake, running toward the fire. She was gone. No sign of struggle. Only the talisman, split in half, lying in the ashes. Morning came, but it didn't feel like morning. The sky was a dull, leaden gray, the sun hidden as if afraid to shine on what the forest now held. They searched for Mara. No broken branches, no dragged footprints, nothing. She was right there, Sophie said, eyes wide, hands trembling. We all heard her scream. She didn't run off, Jonas muttered. She was taken. Leonard stared at the broken talisman. That thing copied her voice. It lured her. Jonas checked his camera. He had recorded the fire, and just before the scream, a shadow crossed the lens. Humanoid. Thin, with two glowing hollow eyes. Not eyes at all, but gaping black voids. What the hell is that? Radu whispered, watching the footage frame by frame. Sophie said nothing. Her fingers traced the old symbols on her journal. I've seen those eyes before, she murmured. In the manuscripts, they left the clearing and ventured deeper into the forest, trying to stay together. But the forest seemed to bend subtly, twisting around them, confusing their sense of direction. By late afternoon, the fog began to change. It wasn't just mist anymore. It was thicker, almost oily, clinging to skin and choking the air. Shapes began to form inside it. Faces, not real faces, but impressions, hollow sockets and open mouths, as if the fog was remembering everyone who had ever screamed inside it. Then Jonas stopped. He had wandered a few steps off the trail, mesmerized by the mist. "Jonas," Leonard called. No reply. Radu grabbed Leonard's arm. "Don't shout, it listens." Sophie stepped forward, whispering, "Jonas, come back." The shape emerged behind Jonas. Tall, impossibly thin. Its face was a dark void with those same hollow eyes. One arm extended toward Jonas, but didn't touch, just hovered. Jonas didn't move. His eyes were glassy, unblinking. Suddenly, he turned the camera on himself and whispered, "It's showing me. The other side." Then he walked into the fog, slow and willing, until he was gone. They ran after him, but the fog grew thicker and thicker, pushing them back. When it cleared, Jonas had vanished. His camera lay on the ground, the footage still recording. On the screen, a forest, but wrong. The trees were twisted, moving slowly like they were breathing. In the background, softly, Jonas's voice. "I can see them. Their eyes. They're empty because they forgot who they were." The group was shaken. 2 missing in less than 24 hours. They made camp in silence that night. No fire, no voices, only the thick black fog circling like a predator. Each of them stayed close, backs against each other, flashlights in hand, turning at the slightest sound. Radu refused to sleep. He sharpened a long hunting knife, muttering in Romanian under his breath. Sophie tried to read, though the pages of her journal seemed to squirm in the low light, ancient ink twisting. In the middle of the night, Leonard heard something strange, a crunching sound, like dry twigs snapping rhythmically, but more hollow. He woke Sophie and Radu. They followed the sound cautiously, weaving through the twisted underbrush. The forest floor glowed faintly with a sickly green hue, as if the earth itself was ill. And then they saw it, a trail of bones. Small bones at first, animal perhaps, but soon larger, human-sized, clean, picked dry, one after another, placed in a straight line as if something intelligent had arranged them. Sophie whispered, "This is a warning, or a path." At the end of the trail, something shimmered, a clearing, silent, dead still. In the center stood a tree, massive, ancient, with bark that looked like cracked stone. Its roots were tangled around bones, half buried in the soil. Skulls, spines, ribbed. As they approached, Sophie noticed something carved into the bark. Symbols. The same as in her journal, but older, deeper. "They were buried alive," she said, voice trembling. "This tree, it fed on them." Suddenly, Radu stepped back. "Something's here." From behind the tree, a low growl echoed. A figure crawled out, human-shaped, but wrong. Skin like old leather, stretched thin. Its mouth hung open, full of soil and teeth. It stared at them, but it had no eyes, just hollow sockets filled with crawling insects. Leonard raised his light, and the thing screeched, retreating into the earth like a worm. They ran, sprinting through the forest, tripping over roots and bones. The trail behind them shimmered and was gone. When they reached the camp again, something was missing. Radu's knife and his bag. He looked pale. "It touched me," he whispered. "It left something in my skin." He pulled up his sleeve. Black veins had begun to creep up his arm, pulsing like roots of a dying tree. The next morning came with no sun, just a pale gray light, as if the forest itself was reluctant to wake. Radu hadn't slept. The black veins had spread farther up his arm, branching into thin roots crawling toward his chest. He refused to show anyone beyond his shoulder, gripping his shirt tightly, sweating despite the cold. Sophie sat across from him, thumbing through her journal, trying to match the ancient symbols on the tree with those recorded in her grandfather's notes. Her lips were pale, her eyes darker. "I think the forest was a prison," she finally said. "But not for people, for something older, something they fed. Leonard stood guard near the trail, watching for movement. He hadn't spoken much since the night before, but his eyes were sharp, alert. Then came a sound, not from the forest, but from their own radio. A sharp crackle, and a voice. "Hello, if someone can hear me, I'm at the river bend. Please help." It was Jacob. Alive. Radu sprang up, ignoring the pain in his arm. "We have to move, now." They packed quickly, following Sophie's GPS and the fading voice. Through brambles, over roots, deeper into the cursed terrain. But what they found at the river bend wasn't Jacob. It was his shirt, shredded and hung on a branch. Below it, something was written in mud and bones. "He is hungry." Suddenly, Sophie screamed. Radu had dropped to his knees, clutching his chest. The black roots had now pierced through his skin, pulsing beneath it like something alive. His veins began to bulge, then tear. From his back, something burst out. A small black tendril, like a root, twisting in the air. Sophie tried to help, but Radu pushed her away. "Don't touch me. Please, it wants a host." He was shaking violently. Then his voice changed, lower, not his own. "I see it now. The tree, the mouth. It remembers." Leonard raised his flare gun and fired it into the air. The burst of light startled whatever was in Radu's body. Radu collapsed, still breathing, but unconscious. They had no choice. They couldn't leave him and they couldn't carry him far, so they made a stretcher from branches. As they began dragging him through the woods, Sophie whispered to Leonard, "If he turns, we end it." Leonard nodded once, and behind them, far back in the trees, something watched. Its breath fogged the cold air. Its fingers curled around the bark of a blackened tree, and it smiled. As night fell again, the forest thickened, not just in trees, but in fog. It came slowly at first, like mist over a grave. Then it thickened into walls of white, curling between trees like ghosts, reaching for skin. Leonard struggled to see the path ahead, his hands gripping the makeshift stretcher as Sophie walked beside him, holding a flashlight with trembling fingers. Radu, pale and barely breathing, muttered in his sleep. "It's under the ground, waiting, always hungry." Sophie flinched. "Leonard, how much further?" He didn't answer. She turned and realized he was gone. In his place stood only trees. The stretcher was gone too. She turned again. No Radu, no gear, no trail, only fog. And then, from every direction, came the voices, whispers, soft at first, then louder. Hundreds of voices in languages she didn't know, chanting, sobbing, screaming, calling her name. "Sophie, Sophie." She spun in place, heart pounding. Her flashlight flickered, then went out. Darkness. She reached for her journal, held it close to her chest. "It's not real," she whispered. "This is a hallucination." But then a hand touched her shoulder. She turned, expecting Leonard. It was her grandfather, but not how she remembered. His face was twisted, rotten, his eyes hollow and black, mud dripping from his jaw. He opened his mouth, and dozens of voices poured out at once. "You opened it. You woke it. It will wear your skin." Sophie screamed. She ran blindly through the fog, stumbling over roots, hearing laughter behind her, her own laughter. Then, a light ahead. A warm flicker, orange, real. She burst through the fog and collapsed at Leonard's feet. He caught her. "Where did you go? I turned around and you were just gone." She gasped, trembling, clinging to him. The fog, it showed me things. Voices. My grandfather. He said, "It wants to wear my skin." Leonard looked down the trail, eyes hard. "We're close now. I can feel it." Sophie looked back. The fog was gone, vanished like it had never been. But Radu was still there on the stretcher, still pale, and still whispering to something no one else could see. Morning came with an eerie silence. No birdsong, no insects, not even the rustle of wind. Just the crackling of old wood under their boots and the distant, almost rhythmic tapping of something underground. Sophie and Leonard trudged forward through the twisted trees, carrying the stretcher with Radu's unconscious body. His whispers had stopped, but now his eyes remained half open, staring blankly at the sky. They were following the map, drawn from the carved symbols Sophie copied back at the monolith. It led them deeper into the old part of the forest, where trees looked burnt from within, blackened veins pulsing beneath the bark. Suddenly, Leonard stopped. Before them lay a massive, gnarled tree, its trunk split open like a wound, revealing a hollow root that sank deep into the ground, wide enough for a person to crawl through. "This is it," he whispered. "This is where it leads." Sophie shivered. "You want us to go inside that thing?" Leonard nodded. They made camp outside the opening and took turns resting, though neither of them could truly sleep. At dusk, Sophie awoke to find Leonard kneeling near the opening, whispering to something inside the root. "Leonard?" she called. He didn't respond. She approached cautiously and saw that he had removed the earplugs they all agreed to wear after Radu's episode. His eyes were glazed, lips twitching. "It knows you, Sophie," he whispered. "It saw you in the fog. It wants to speak to you now." Sophie stepped back. "You need to put the earplugs back in. You're hearing it." Leonard turned slowly toward her, his eyes full of awe and fear. "I did, and I still hear it." Just then, Radu began to scream from the stretcher. Not a human scream, but something guttural in a tongue that twisted the air. The hollow root began to glow faintly, red veins pulsing along the wood. And deep inside the root, a voice called her name. The glow from the hollow root pulsed softly, casting long shadows on the forest floor. Sophie swallowed hard, feeling both drawn and terrified by the voice that whispered her name from within. Leonard helped her steady herself. "We have no choice. If this is the source of the curse, we must face it." Sophie nodded, steeling her nerves. She took a deep breath and crawled into the opening. The hollow root was tight, but spacious enough for one person to move through. The air inside was damp and cool, filled with the scent of earth and something ancient, something alive. As she moved deeper, the faint red glow grew stronger, illuminating strange carvings etched into the wood, symbols of eyes, hands, and twisting serpents. Suddenly, the tunnel opened into a cavernous space lined with roots that writhed like living snakes. At the center lay a small altar carved from stone, stained dark with age. Sophie approached cautiously. On the altar rested a bundle wrapped in faded cloth. A human skull, its eye sockets empty but somehow glowing faintly with the same red light. She reached out, her fingers trembling, and touched the skull. A surge of images flooded her mind, faces of the lost expedition members, their final moments filled with terror. Then a dark figure, shadowy and indistinct, rising from the earth, its hollow eyes fixed on her. The voice returned, louder and clearer. "You have come. Now you will see. The forest remembers. The forest takes." Sophie gasped, stumbling backward as the roots around her began to move, curling and tightening like grasping hands. From behind, Leonard's voice called urgently, "Sophie, we need to leave. Now." She tore her hand away and scrambled back through the root tunnel, the walls seeming to pulse and close behind her. Emerging into the open air, Sophie collapsed into Leonard's arms. The curse was real, and it was awake. The forest was quiet at dawn, but the shadows seemed heavier than before. Sophie and Leonard, exhausted and shaken, sat beside the dying embers of their campfire. Radu remained motionless on the stretcher, his breathing shallow but steady. The others, now just the three of them, were beginning to feel the weight of the unknown pressing in. Sophie's mind raced with the images from the altar, the dark figure, the whispering voice, the cursed forest that seemed alive. "Do you think it's following us?" Leonard asked quietly. Sophie shook her head. "Not just following, it's hunting." The forest around them rustled softly, as if listening. Suddenly, a chilling scream shattered the silence. It came from deeper in the woods, distant but agonizing. Leonard jumped up. That sounded like Anna. Sophie's heart clenched. Anna had been their guide, the first to disappear. "We have to find her," Sophie said, her voice trembling. They packed their few belongings and moved toward the sound, stepping carefully between twisted roots and broken branches. The scream echoed again, closer this time. Suddenly, Leonard stopped dead. Look, ahead, lying crumpled in a clearing, was Anna. Her face was pale, eyes wide with terror. She clawed at the ground, struggling to speak but unable. Sophie rushed to her side, kneeling. "Anna, what happened?" Anna gasped, voice barely a whisper. "The forest. It spoke to me. Showed me things." Her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed into Sophie's arms. Leonard looked around nervously. "We're running out of time. Whatever this is, it's getting stronger." Sophie clenched her fists. "Then we fight. We uncover the truth, before it's too late." As dawn broke fully, Sophie, Leonard, and the barely conscious Anna pressed deeper into the forest, guided by a strange pull they couldn't explain. The trees here were ancient, their massive trunks covered with moss and strange markings. The air grew thick with an eerie silence, broken only by faint whispers that seemed to echo from the trees themselves. Sophie's skin prickled with unease. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. Leonard nodded. "It's like the trees are trying to talk." Anna's eyes fluttered open for a moment. "The forest remembers," she murmured. "It holds the pain of those who died here." They moved cautiously, every step heavy with tension. Suddenly, the whispers grew louder, almost voices now, weaving words Sophie couldn't fully understand. Leonard stopped. "This is no ordinary forest. We're inside something alive." Sophie felt a presence pressing on her mind, memories of past explorers flashing through her vision, each one meeting a grisly end. A rustle to their left made them spin around. A figure stepped out from behind a tree. An old man, his eyes wild but familiar. "You don't belong here," he warned. "The forest doesn't forgive." Before they could ask who he was, he vanished into the shadows, leaving behind a chilling warning that sent shivers down their spines. The warning of the old man lingered in their minds as they ventured further. Sophie helped Anna walk, whose strength was fading fast. Leonard scanned the surroundings with growing unease. Suddenly, Leonard stopped and pointed to a barely visible path, overgrown with vines and shadowed by towering trees. "This must be the forgotten path," he said quietly. "It's not on any map." With no other choice, they decided to follow it. The air grew colder. The canopy above thickened, letting in only slivers of dim light. The silence was heavy, almost suffocating. After walking for what felt like hours, they came to a small clearing where an old stone arch stood, covered in ancient carvings. Sophie ran her fingers over the symbols, feeling a strange energy pulse beneath her touch. "Something's here," she whispered. "Something waiting." A sudden gust of wind blew through the clearing, carrying with it faint whispers of warnings from the past. Leonard tightened his grip on his backpack strap. "We're close to the heart of this mystery. But the forest, it's testing us." Anna shivered beside them, eyes wide and fearful. Sophie knew one thing. There was no turning back now. The stone arch marked the entrance to a forgotten part of the forest, where time seemed to slow and memories lingered like ghosts. Sophie, Leonard, and Anna stepped through cautiously. Immediately, the air grew heavy with an ancient presence. The ground beneath their feet felt uneven, as if hiding secrets below. Suddenly, Sophie's eyes caught movement, a flicker of shadow disappearing behind a thick trunk. "Did you see that?" she whispered. Leonard nodded, gripping his flashlight tighter. "We're not alone." As they moved deeper, faint voices echoed through the trees, whispers of explorers long gone. Anna clutched Sophie's arm. "They're trying to tell us something." The trio followed the voices, leading them to a crumbling stone wall covered in faded symbols. Sophie traced the carvings, each telling a story of tragedy and warning. "This place, it's a memorial," she said softly, "for those who never left." Suddenly, a cold breeze swept through and the whispers grew louder, urging them onward but warning of dangers ahead. Leonard glanced at Sophie. We have to keep going. Whatever happened here, it's not finished. Guided by the carvings, the group pressed forward until the stone wall opened into a narrow passage. The air was colder here, filled with dust and a faint metallic scent. Sophie's flashlight revealed stairs descending into darkness. "This must be the hidden chamber," Leonard said, his voice tense. Anna hesitated but nodded, gripping Sophie's hand. Slowly they descended, each step echoing ominously. At the bottom, a vast chamber stretched before them, walls lined with cryptic symbols glowing faintly. In the center lay an old wooden chest, bound with rusted iron. Sophie approached, heart pounding. As she lifted the lid, a sudden chill swept through the room. Inside, they found ancient relics and a weathered journal, the last record of an explorer who vanished decades ago. The journal spoke of a curse, unleashed by those who disturbed the forest's peace. Suddenly, the chamber trembled. Shadows flickered along the walls. Leonard shouted, "We need to leave, now!" The trembling grew stronger as they scrambled back up the stairs, the hidden chamber seeming to come alive around them. The faint glow of symbols on the walls pulsed, casting eerie shadows that danced like specters. The journal's warning echoed in Sophie's mind. Those who disturb the forest shall face the shadow's wrath. Leonard's flashlight flickered, threatening to go out, and panic crept into their hearts. Anna stumbled, her breath shallow and rapid. Sophie caught her just in time, whispering urgent words of reassurance. Outside, the forest seemed darker than before, its ancient trees looming like silent sentinels watching their every move. The air was thick with tension, and every rustle of leaves felt like a threat. Suddenly, a cold breeze swept past them, carrying a whisper so faint Sophie barely heard it. "Leave before it's too late." They quickened their pace, desperate to reach the campsite, but the path seemed unfamiliar, twisting and turning as if the forest itself was reshaping to trap them. Leonard stopped suddenly, shining his light on the ground. There, etched into the dirt, was a symbol from the journal, the mark of the shadow. "It's trying to warn us," he said grimly. But warn us of what? As they moved forward, shadows stretched out like fingers, brushing against their skin and filling their minds with cold dread. The forest wasn't just alive. It was angry, and it was hunting them. Sophie felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. The forest's whispers morphed into low growls, and the shadows seemed to close in around them like a tightening noose. "We have to stay together," Leonard urged, his voice firm despite the fear creeping in. Anna's steps faltered again, exhaustion clearly setting in, but she pushed forward, driven by sheer will. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed nearby. The group froze. From the underbrush, a dark shape lunged. Leonard reacted instantly, swinging his flashlight to reveal a wild animal, eyes blazing in the dark, snarling aggressively. The creature's snarls shifted into something almost human, and with a final breath, it vanished into the shadows. "Did that just happen?" Anna gasped. "No," Sophie said grimly. "This forest doesn't want us here. It's warning us and hunting us." Panic began to rise, but Sophie's mind raced for answers. They couldn't turn back. They had to find a way through. Then she remembered the journal's last page. It spoke of an ancient ritual to appease the spirits. "We have to find the ritual site," she said quickly. "If we don't, none of us will make it out." Leonard nodded, steeling himself. "Lead the way." The group moved deeper into the forest, every step heavy with dread, but with a flicker of hope. A chance for survival. The forest seemed endless, the canopy above blotting out the moonlight. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig made their hearts race. Sophie kept the journal tightly in her hands, her eyes scanning for any landmark described within. Leonard carried the map, though it was old and worn, barely readable. He whispered directions as best as he could interpret, the tension making his voice quiver. After what felt like hours, they came upon a clearing. In the moonlight, ancient stone pillars rose from the ground, covered in moss and ivy, surrounding a circular altar etched with the same cryptic symbols from the chamber. "This must be it," Sophie breathed, approaching cautiously. Anna dropped to her knees, clutching her chest as if trying to steady her pounding heart. Sophie opened the journal again, reading aloud the ritual instructions. The air thickened, the forest silent but watchful. They gathered items described: a handful of herbs, a piece of bark, and water from the nearby stream. As they arranged them on the altar, a cold wind swirled, carrying the scent of earth and decay. Sophie chanted the ancient words, her voice trembling but resolute. The symbols glowed brighter, illuminating the clearing with an other-worldly light. Suddenly, shadows recoiled, and the oppressive weight lifted. For a moment, silence reigned. Then a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. A sign of approval. Relieved, the group looked at each other. Hope rekindled. But Sophie knew this was only the beginning. Sophie felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. The forest's whispers morphed into low growls, and the shadows seemed to close in around them like a tightening noose. "We have to stay together," Leonard urged, his voice firm despite the fear creeping in. Anna's steps faltered again, exhaustion clearly setting in. But she pushed forward, driven by sheer will. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed nearby. The group froze. From the underbrush, a dark shape lunged. Leonard reacted instantly, swinging his flashlight to reveal a wild animal, eyes blazing in the dark, snarling aggressively. The creature's snarl shifted into something almost human, and with a final breath, it vanished into the shadows. "Did that just happen?" Anna gasped. "No," Sophie said grimly. "This forest doesn't want us here. It's warning us and hunting us." Panic began to rise, but Sophie's mind raced for answers. They couldn't turn back. They had to find a way through. Then she remembered the journal's last page. It spoke of an ancient ritual to appease the spirits. "We have to find the ritual site," she said quickly. "If we don't, none of us will make it out." Leonard nodded, steeling himself. "Lead the way." The group moved deeper into the forest, every step heavy with dread, but with a flicker of hope, a chance for survival. The forest seemed endless, the canopy above blotting out the moonlight. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig made their hearts race. Sophie kept the journal tightly in her hands, her eyes scanning for any landmark described within. Leonard carried the map, though it was old and worn, barely readable. He whispered directions as best as he could interpret, the tension making his voice quiver. After what felt like hours, they came upon a clearing. In the moonlight, ancient stone pillars rose from the ground, covered in moss and ivy, surrounding a circular altar etched with the same cryptic symbols from the chamber. "This must be it," Sophie breathed, approaching cautiously. Anna dropped to her knees, clutching her chest as if trying to steady her pounding heart. Sophie opened the journal again, reading aloud the ritual instructions. The air thickened, the forest silent but watchful. They gathered items described: a handful of herbs, a piece of bark, and water from the nearby stream. As they arranged them on the altar, a cold wind swirled, carrying the scent of earth and decay. Sophie chanted the ancient words, her voice trembling but resolute. The symbols glowed brighter, illuminating the clearing with an other-worldly light. Suddenly, shadows recoiled and the oppressive weight lifted. For a moment, silence reigned, then a gentle breeze rustled the leaves, a sign of approval. Relieved, the group looked at each other. Hope rekindled. But Sophie knew this was only the beginning. The forest was alive, watching, and the darkness had not yet given up its secrets. The moment the ritual ended, the oppressive feeling that had weighed on their chests seemed to lift, but only slightly. Sophie sensed that something deeper had been stirred in the forest. The group gathered their things, eyes still flickering nervously to every shadow that seemed to dance just beyond the reach of their flashlights. The forest was no longer just a place of trees and silence. It had become a living entity, watching, waiting. "We need to keep moving," Sophie said, voice low but commanding. "If we stay here too long, the forest will swallow us whole." Leonard nodded, scanning the horizon through the dense undergrowth. The journal mentioned a path. one that leads to the heart of the mystery. If we find it, maybe we can end this nightmare. Anna shivered, pulling her jacket tighter around her. I don't know if I can keep going. The forest, it's alive. I swear I hear voices sometimes, whispering secrets I don't want to know. Sophie gave her a reassuring smile. You're stronger than you think. We all are. Together, we'll find a way out. With the ritual done, they followed the faint trail that the journal had hinted at. A narrow path winding between ancient trees, their gnarled roots twisting like serpents across the ground. The deeper they went, the heavier the air became. Every breath felt thick, as if the forest itself was trying to suffocate them. Strange shapes flickered just at the edge of their vision, shadows that didn't belong to any living creature. Leonard stumbled on a root, catching himself against a moss-covered stone. We're close, he whispered, looking at the map again. The heart of the mystery. It has to be just ahead. Sophie's eyes darted around, every sense on high alert. Suddenly, a cold breeze swept through the clearing, carrying with it the unmistakable sound of whispering voices. They came from all directions, words indistinct but filled with urgency and warning. Did you hear that? Anna asked, voice trembling. Yes, Sophie replied. The forest is speaking to us. We have to listen carefully. They pressed forward, following the voices until they reached a massive tree unlike any other. Its bark was blackened and cracked, pulsing faintly with an eerie glow. This is it, Leonard said, awe and fear mingling in his voice. The source. Sophie stepped closer, placing her hand on the tree. A sudden jolt of energy surged through her, images flashing before her eyes, visions of past explorers, their faces twisted in fear and pain, trapped between this world and the next. The tree whispered secrets of the forest's curse, a dark pact made centuries ago, binding the souls of those who dared to uncover its truth. Suddenly, the ground trembled. From the shadows emerged figures, ghostly and translucent, their eyes hollow and accusing. We've disturbed their rest, Sophie murmured, heart pounding. The spirits closed in, their whispers turning to anguished cries. Leonard tried to shield Anna, but the spectral hands passed through him, chilling his very soul. Sophie raised the journal, chanting the words of protection she had memorized. A barrier of light flickered around them, pushing the spirits back. But the forest was not done yet. A deep growl echoed, and a monstrous shadow lunged from the darkness, a twisted beast born of the curse itself. The group braced for the fight of their lives. The monstrous shadow lunged forward with a terrifying roar, its twisted limbs stretching impossibly long, eyes burning with a malevolent red light. The forest around them seemed to pulse with the beast's fury, trees shaking as if in fear. Sophie's heart pounded in her chest as she instinctively raised the protective barrier around the group. The creature snarled, swiping at the barrier with claws that could rend steel, sending sparks flying into the night. Leonard shouted, "Keep the light strong! Don't let it touch you!" Anna stumbled backward, nearly falling as the ground beneath them quaked. The beast's growls echoed through the trees, shaking the very earth and chilling their souls. Sophie gritted her teeth, focusing on the ritual words from the journal. Light of the ancients, shield us from the darkness. The barrier flared brighter, momentarily pushing the creature back, but it quickly recovered, its fury growing stronger with each passing second. "We need to find its weakness," Sophie yelled. "It's tied to the tree. Destroy that and we might have a chance." Leonard nodded, gripping a heavy branch and charging toward the ancient tree. The beast roared in fury, lunging to stop him, but Sophie held the barrier steady. Leonard raised the branch high and struck the tree's blackened bark with all his might. The tree shuddered violently, cracks spiderwebbing across its surface as the beast screamed in rage. Suddenly, the spirits that had surrounded them earlier reappeared, their forms glowing brighter. They circled the tree, chanting in unison, their voices harmonizing with Sophie's protective words. The barrier pulsed with light, engulfing the beast in a brilliant blaze. With a final, ear-splitting roar, the creature disintegrated into shadows, disappearing into the night. The forest fell silent once more. Breathing heavily, Sophie and her companions gathered close. The curse's grip had weakened, but they knew their journey was far from over. "We broke its hold on the forest," Leonard said, wiping sweat from his brow. "But the curse, it's still here, waiting." Anna nodded, fear and determination mixing in her eyes. "We have to finish this. For all the souls lost." Sophie looked to the dark canopy above. "Tomorrow we'll go deeper, to the origin of the curse." The morning mist clung thick to the forest floor as Sophie, Leonard, Anna, and the remaining members of the expedition packed their gear. The air was heavy, not just with moisture, but with a palpable sense of dread. Each breath they took felt like they were inhaling the forest's sorrow. "We're going deeper than ever before," Sophie announced, her voice steady despite the tension. "The journal's clues lead us to the heart of the curse, an ancient shrine buried beneath the roots of this forest." Leonard secured his pack, glancing around nervously. "No one knows what we'll find there. We should be prepared for anything." Anna tightened the straps on her boots, her eyes scanning the dense trees ahead. "If the curse started there, then maybe destroying the shrine will finally end this nightmare." The group moved cautiously, every step crunching against the damp leaves. The forest grew darker, the canopy thickening so much that only slivers of sunlight pierced through. Strange symbols carved into tree trunks glowed faintly, a warning or perhaps a guide. Hours later, the ground dipped sharply. Before them lay a moss-covered stone staircase spiraling downward. An unnatural chill radiated from the depths below. Sophie took a deep breath. This must be it. They descended carefully, the air growing colder, heavier. Faint whispers echoed off the walls, voices of the lost souls trapped by the curse, or something far worse. At the bottom, they found the shrine, a circular chamber with walls adorned in ancient runes. In the center stood a dark altar, cracked and stained with what looked like dried blood. Leonard stepped forward, examining the inscriptions. "This speaks of a binding ritual, a sacrifice to keep the darkness sealed." Suddenly, the chamber shook. Dust fell from the ceiling and the shadows deepened, twisting into grotesque forms. Sophie raised her staff, chanting the protective incantation once more. The others joined in, their voices blending into a powerful harmony. But the darkness wasn't passive. It surged forward, tendrils of shadow reaching for them, cold and hungry. Anna screamed as a shadow wrapped around her ankle, pulling her toward the altar. Leonard lunged, grabbing her just in time. "We have to break the seal," Sophie cried. "Destroy the altar and free the souls." With trembling hands, Leonard struck the altar with a heavy stone. Cracks spiderwebbed across its surface, and a terrible howl filled the chamber. The shadows writhed and screamed, then burst into a blinding light. One by one, ethereal figures appeared, faces twisted in pain, but finally, at peace. The curse was lifting. Exhausted but hopeful, the group ascended the stairs, feeling the weight of darkness retreating behind them. Outside, the forest seemed to breathe anew. Birds singing, sunlight filtering warmly through the trees. Sophie smiled faintly. "We're not done yet, but this is a victory. The darkness will not claim this place anymore." The forest seemed reborn under the morning sun, birdsong filling the air with an unfamiliar lightness. The oppressive gloom that had hung over the expedition was lifting. Yet a strange silence remained, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Sophie led the group out of the shrine and back onto the winding forest path. Despite their victory, the weight of what had transpired clung to them. Leonard glanced back once more at the altar's shattered remnants, a mixture of relief and uncertainty in his eyes. "We did it," Anna said softly. "But what if this isn't the end? What if there's more we don't understand?" Sophie nodded thoughtfully. "The curse is old. Breaking the seal might have freed the souls trapped here, but the forest remembers. It may take time for the darkness to fade completely." As they trekked back toward the edge of the woods, subtle changes in the environment caught their attention. Trees once twisted and gnarled now appeared straighter, their bark smoother. The air felt fresher, lighter. Even the oppressive silence was replaced by the gentle hum of life. Yet Sophie remained vigilant. "We must document everything, record the changes, and stay alert. We don't know what else lies hidden." Suddenly, Anna stopped, her eyes fixed on a small, ornate box partially buried beneath a pile of leaves. She reached down carefully and lifted it. Opening the box revealed a faded map marked with symbols that neither Sophie nor Leonard recognized. "This wasn't here before," Leonard muttered. Sophie frowned. "Or maybe it was waiting for us." The journey was far from over. The forest had secrets yet to reveal, and the true nature of the curse still whispered in the shadows. But for now, they had survived, and that was a beginning. The map in Sophie's hands felt heavy. Not from its weight, but from the promise it held, a path not just through the forest, but through time itself. A chance to understand the curse's origin and perhaps to finally end it. That evening, gathered around the flickering campfire, the group pored over the faded symbols. Leonard traced the lines carefully, cross-referencing with Sophie's notes. Anna, still wary but determined, kept watch at the edge of the firelight. "This map points to a hidden chamber beneath the oldest tree in the forest," Leonard said. "If we can find it, we might uncover the source of the curse." The next morning, they set out, hearts heavy but hopeful. The journey was treacherous. Roots twisted like serpents, shadows shifting unnaturally, and eerie whispers that seemed to follow their every step. At last, they reached the ancient tree. Colossal, its bark etched with carvings worn by centuries. Beneath its roots, hidden by earth and roots, was an entrance, a narrow, dark passage leading deep underground. With only their flashlights and courage, they descended. Inside, the air was thick and still. Walls glistened with moisture, and strange runes glowed faintly in the dim light. At the chamber's center stood a pedestal, upon which rested a weathered tome bound in cracked leather. Sophie reached out and opened the book. Inside was the story of a powerful guardian spirit, betrayed and trapped by villagers long ago. The curse was its anguished cry, a chain of suffering echoing through generations. But the tome also held a secret, a ritual to release the spirit's pain and restore balance. Together, they performed the ancient rite, voices trembling but resolute. A chill swept through the chamber, then a warm light bathed the room. The oppressive darkness lifted, replaced by a peaceful calm. The moment they emerged from the ancient chamber, a chilling wind swept through the forest, carrying with it an unnatural howl. Sophie's heart raced. This was no ordinary night. The ritual had unleashed something more than they anticipated. Leonard tightened his grip on his flashlight, eyes scanning the dense trees. "Something followed us out," he whispered. Suddenly, from the shadows, a grotesque figure lunged. Its skin was mottled, eyes burning with malevolence. The group scattered, screams piercing the night as branches scratched and blood splattered. Anna fought fiercely, her hands trembling but determined as she defended Sophie. The creature snarled, claws slashing, leaving deep wounds across their arms. Blood dripped and stained the earth. "We need to regroup," Sophie shouted, dragging Anna behind a fallen tree. Leonard threw a makeshift spear, striking the creature's shoulder. It howled in pain but didn't retreat. "This thing is the curse's guardian, awakened and furious," Leonard said grimly. "We can't outrun it. We have to fight." As more twisted shapes emerged from the darkness, the group formed a tight circle, weapons raised. The forest became a battlefield, blood, fear, and desperate hope mingling beneath the moonlight. In the chaos, Sophie remembered the tome's final words. Only the light of the dawn could truly end the curse. They had to survive until sunrise. Wounded and weary, they held their ground through the night, fighting not just for their lives, but for the forest's future. The forest reeked of iron and death. Sophie clutched Anna close as the last of the night's attackers crumbled into ash. Her arms were slick with blood. Some hers, most not. The group had barely survived. Marcus was gone, dragged into the darkness by something they didn't dare name. Leonard stood in the center, bleeding from a deep gash on his leg, eyes locked on the massive tree ahead, the one older than any ruin they'd seen. "That tree," he said hoarsely. "It's not just part of the forest. It's the heart of it." Sophie felt it too. A throbbing pulse, deep under the soil, like the tree was breathing. No, like it was feeding. Something ancient slept beneath its roots. From her satchel, Sophie pulled the old journal they'd recovered. She flipped through pages stained with mildew and ink until she found a symbol matching the carvings on the tree bark. "The ritual didn't unleash the curse," she whispered. "It disturbed the guardian that keeps the curse sealed." Leonard's expression darkened. "We've been fighting the wrong thing." A low rumble made the ground tremble. Roots snapped and rose from the earth, coiling like serpents. A roar, not beast nor man, shook the treetops. From under the tree, something massive stirred. Anna screamed as a pale hand burst from the dirt. A figure clawed its way out. A woman, or what once had been. Her face was veiled in moss, her eyes weeping black ichor. Her voice echoed with agony. "They broke the pact. You disturbed the balance. Now blood must feed the roots." Before they could move, the roots lashed out. Leonard shielded Sophie as a tendril pierced his shoulder. Blood sprayed. Sophie screamed his name, but he gritted his teeth, ripping the root from his body and hurling a torch at the tree. Flames licked the bark, but the tree did not burn. It wailed. The forest shook. The woman shrieked, retreating into the shadows, and the roots retracted, wounded for now. "We have to finish what we started," Leonard growled. "We find the true seal. We put this evil back where it belongs." Sophie knelt beside him, pressing a cloth to his wound. "We can't do this alone." Leonard's eyes met hers, bloodied, defiant, alive. "We don't have to, but we will do it." The deeper they walked into the forest, the less the sun seemed to exist. The trees grew too tall, too close. No birds sang, no wind stirred. The ground was littered with bones, some animals, others clearly human. Sophie gripped the journal like a lifeline. Leonard limped beside her, every step soaked in pain and stubbornness. Anna followed close behind, her once bright eyes now dim with trauma. Suddenly, the path ended at a mound of black stone, jagged and alien, covered in ivy that pulsed faintly in the dark. At its center, a door, not carved but grown, shaped by time and something inhuman. "The tomb," Leonard whispered. It was never a myth. Sophie stepped forward, heart racing. The moment her hand touched the stone door, the air changed. Cold rushed up her spine, whispers flooded her ears, dozens of voices, some weeping, others screaming. She stumbled back, gasping. "I heard them, the ones who died here," Leonard nodded grimly. "This place feeds on death. It traps the soul." They pushed the door open. Inside, the tomb spiraled downward. The walls were etched with grotesque carvings, bodies twisted in agony, devoured by roots. As they descended, a foul stench clung to their lungs. Anna began to tremble. "I see things," she whispered. Faces in the stone. Sophie saw them too. Every few steps the stone shimmered, and the faces of the dead looked back. Mouths open in silent screams. At the bottom, they found the source, a circular chamber with a stone altar in the center. On it lay a blackened heart, still beating. Around it, the remains of ancient explorers, mummified in terror. "This is the seal," Sophie realized. "It's alive. It must be kept alive, or everything spills out." "But it's weakening," Leonard said, staring at a crack in the altar. "The curse is bleeding through." Suddenly, a scream tore through the chamber. Anna collapsed, eyes rolling back. From the walls, shadows peeled themselves off and formed figures, twisted echoes of those who had come before. One of them spoke, its voice like shattered glass. "You awakened us. Now finish what we could not." Leonard stepped in front of Sophie and Anna, brandishing his last torch. "Tell us how," the wraith hissed. "You must choose one to stay behind. One must feed the seal. Forever." Sophie's heart froze. "No, there has to be another way." But the seal pulsed faster, hungrier. The shadows closed in. Time was running out. The chamber trembled. The seal's pulsing heart pounded louder, faster, its surface cracking open to reveal glimmers of red light, like a volcano awakening after centuries of sleep. The shadows crept forward. Anna screamed, clutching her chest. Sophie rushed to her, but her hands passed through a cold mist that wrapped around Anna's limbs like chains. Leonard swung his torch, but the flames did nothing. The tomb had become a trap. The wraith from before floated closer, its body made of smoke and memory. One soul to bind the hunger, one to bleed, one to remember. Leonard shouted, "We're not sacrificing anyone." The wraith's hollow eyes narrowed. "Then all shall be devoured." Suddenly, the ground beneath Sophie glowed. Runes flared into light, ancient, angular, and strangely familiar. They responded to her presence. "Sophie," Anna croaked, "the journal. It talked about a descendant, a bloodline." Sophie stared at the glowing floor, heart racing. She flipped the journal open with trembling hands, skimming frantically, until a phrase leapt out. "When the time comes, she who bears the mark shall awaken the bond. Only her blood can silence the seal." A chill washed over her. She pulled up her sleeve. There, faint but glowing now, was the same rune. It had always been there. A birthmark, a scar she never questioned. "No," she whispered. "It's me." Leonard stepped back, horrified. You're the key." "I'm the blood the seal needs." The wraith nodded slowly, satisfied. "You have remembered." Anna grabbed Sophie's arm. "There has to be another way. Maybe if we break the heart." "No," Leonard shouted. "The journal said if the seal is broken without the offering, the dead escape. All of them." The tension thickened like smoke. Sophie looked at her friends, at Anna's trembling face, Leonard's broken leg, and the flickering torch. "I won't let either of you stay," she whispered. She walked to the altar, heart pounding like thunder. The heart on the stone pulsed in rhythm with her own. As her palm touched it, fire shot through her veins. She screamed, but didn't let go. Memories flooded her mind, not hers, but those of the priestess who sealed the tomb centuries ago. She saw the sacrifice, the betrayal, the screams, the cycle repeating again and again, always needing blood, always trapping someone behind. She saw the truth. The curse wasn't a punishment. It was a prison built to contain something worse. And now it wanted her. Sophie fell to her knees. "No," she gasped. "Not me. Not like this." The seal whispered back. "Then give us another." Her eyes opened wide. Another? What if she didn't need to feed the seal herself? What if she could trick it? Her gaze shot to the heart again. Suddenly, she understood. It's not about death. It's about belief, memory. Leonard looked at her. "What are you doing?" "I'm going to lie to it." She bit her finger, let blood drip on the altar, then pulled Anna and Leonard into a circle. She began chanting, not words from the journal, but something deeper, more primal. Words the rune inside her remembered. The seal roared. The tomb shook. The wraith screamed. Then silence. The heart stilled. The runes vanished. The shadows fled. Sophie collapsed. When she awoke, the chamber was bathed in golden light. Anna knelt over her, sobbing with relief. Leonard smiled through his tears. "It worked," he said. "You're alive." Sophie blinked, dazed. "I tricked it." Anna helped her up. "What now?" They looked around. The seal was no longer beating, but no longer bleeding. Silent, waiting. Leonard helped Sophie to her feet. "No more sacrifices," she said. "Not ever again." As they climbed back toward the surface, Sophie glanced back one last time at the heart, now turned to stone. It had spared her, But for how long? The night descended like a heavy curtain, swallowing the last rays of sunlight through the dense canopy of the cursed forest. Only 5 members of the original expedition remained. Sophia, the determined anthropologist; Elias, the skeptical historian; Marta, the medic with a haunted past; Thomas, the quiet survivalist; and little Anselm, the boy who seemed to have awakened something ancient just by stepping into this land. They had found an abandoned chapel at the heart of the forest, a place covered in ivy, moss, and strange markings on its stone walls. The air smelled of rotting incense and iron. This was where the final markings on the map had led them, but instead of sanctuary, they found the chilling remnants of a ritual. Dried blood in a circle, blackened candles still stuck in place, and bones. So many bones. Sophia's voice shook as she held up the old journal they'd recovered in Part 24. The next sacrifice. It's supposed to be the one who carries the mark. One of us. Anselm looked up at her. I feel it burning. On my back. Marta knelt beside him, gently lifting the back of his shirt. A mark, like a black root curling beneath his skin, was pulsing faintly, like a second heartbeat. Suddenly, a scream cut through the chapel's silence. Elias, who had stepped outside, was now being dragged into the trees by something covered in black fur and writhing limbs. Thomas ran after him with a machete, vanishing into the darkness. Sophia, Marta, and Anselm huddled inside, the candles suddenly relighting by themselves. A voice, raspy and ancient, whispered from the walls. He who bears the mark must choose, surrender or suffer. Outside, Thomas returned bloodied, limping without Elias. I couldn't save him, he said, breathless, but I saw a gate in the roots. Sophia looked at Anselm. That's where we end this. We bring the mark to the gate. Maybe we can break this. But Anselm whispered, it doesn't want to be broken. As they prepared to leave, Marta handed Sophia a vial of red liquid. If it takes me, she said, use this. It's poison. Quick, clean. They stepped into the dark again, toward the twisted roots that formed the gate. Creatures watched from the trees, figures with stitched eyes and jaws torn open in permanent screams. The air pulsed with a humming sound that bent time and space. Sophia led Anselm forward, each step feeling like a century. When they reached the gate, the root mark on Anselm's back burned brighter, illuminating ancient carvings. The marked must speak the name. Anselm's voice was barely a whisper. Verandir, the forest groaned. The trees shook violently. A portal opened, red and swirling like a wound in reality. Then, from behind them, a figure leapt forward. It was Elias, or what had once been Elias. His skin was grayed, his eyes black voids. He was one of them now. He lunged for Anselm. Thomas tackled him mid-air, pushing Elias into the portal with a roar. I'll hold him, he screamed. Go! Sophia hesitated, but Marta grabbed her arm and pulled her and Anselm through the portal. The last thing they heard was Thomas's howl as the portal swallowed him and closed. They landed on soft soil. The sky above was clear. Birds sang. They were outside the cursed forest, but only 3 of them remained. And on Anselm's back, the mark was gone. The 3 remaining survivors, Sophia, Marta, and little Anselm, sat motionless on the soft grass. Before them lay an open field of thinning forest, eerily silent. No bird song, no rustling branches, only the occasional chirp and breeze, deceptively gentle. Sophia pushed herself up, squinting at the bright blue sky with suspicion. Did we really make it out? That was too easy. Marta stood beside her, gripping the vial of red toxin she had prepared earlier. I don't trust it. The gate never lets anyone leave without taking something in return. Anselm silently scanned the area. The glowing mark on his back had vanished, but there was something in his eyes. A cold emptiness. Are you all right, sweetheart? Sophia asked gently. Anselm nodded. Yes, but I still hear the voice. It's louder now, clearer. The 2 women exchanged glances. This wasn't over. They began walking west, following the GPS signal from Sophia's handheld tracker. It had been useless within the cursed forest, but now it beeped steadily, just 7 kilometers from the original research station. They'd walked less than a kilometer when the sky dimmed. A thick, unnatural cloud rolled in. The wind died. No more birds. Anselm stopped mid-step. They're coming. From the trees behind them, oily black shadows slithered forth, formless, like ink swirling in water, yet they moved with heavy, echoing footsteps. One of them spoke in a distorted, human-like voice. He opened the gate. He is the vessel. "Run!" Sophia screamed, grabbing Anselm's hand. They bolted across the thinning woods. The shadows chased relentlessly. Each step they took wilting grass and leaves into ash. Marta turned, hurling the red vial behind her. It exploded in a crimson mist, igniting one of the shadows into screams and vapor. But the others pressed on. "We can't outrun them forever," Sophia cried. "We need a boundary, something sacred." Just then, they saw them. Ancient stone pillars forming a circle, remnants of a lost civilization that once kept the forest sealed. Anselm froze. "I've seen this place in my dreams." He stepped into the center of the circle, knelt, and began whispering in an unearthly tongue. Not Latin, not any human language. The earth rumbled. The shadows skidded to a halt outside the stones. Their howls grew shrill, claws swiping at an invisible wall. A deep voice echoed. Not from Anselm, but through him. Something ancient. "You have opened the gate, but the gatekeeper does not sleep." Marta stepped back, trembling. "Sophia, that's not Anselm anymore." Sophia raised her gun, but hesitated. "Can we save him?" The voice replied. "If a mother offers her blood willingly, the vessel shall be freed. But only once." Sophia looked at Marta. Marta nodded. "Do it," she whispered. "If I must be the one, I will." She stepped forward, unsheathing her blade, and cut deep into her palm. Blood dripped onto the ground beneath Anselm. The soil absorbed it hungrily. Anselm screamed, his body convulsed violently, then collapsed. The shadows shrieked and dissolved into ash. The sky cleared. Sophia rushed forward and held Anselm in her arms, unconscious but breathing. His face was calm, peaceful. The mark was gone. Marta, slumped nearby, her shirt soaked in blood, smiled faintly. "Finally, peace. We'll end this," Sophia whispered. For all of them, from the spot where her blood had soaked the ground, a tiny sapling had sprouted, glowing faintly like crystal, a symbol of rebirth amidst what once was darkness. Morning came. Sunlight streamed through the thinning forest canopy, a faint sign of hope. But Sophia knew too well. This peace wouldn't last. Anselm lay sleeping in her arms, his skin once again warm and pink. Marta sat slumped against the base of a tree, her face pale, the wound on her arm still bleeding slightly. "You need to rest," Sophia said gently. Marta shook her head. "No, it's not over. We've only sealed the first gate. I saw it in a vision." "Saw what?" "There are 3 gates. The first was in the forest. The second..." She turned her head northward. "It lies underground, beneath the ruins of an old church. And the third is where it all began, an ancient quarry in the Red Mountains." Sophia swallowed hard. "We can't stop, can we?" Marta clenched her hand into a fist, her eyes fierce. "If we don't seal all 3, the darkness will spread across Europe. What happened in the forest was just a warning." 4 days later, they journeyed through a valley, avoiding patrols and rescue teams searching for the missing expedition team. No one could ever know the truth, that only 3 had survived, and 1 child had been possessed by ancient evil and barely saved. Eventually, they arrived at the abandoned village of Marendorf, where Marta believed the second gate lay buried. The village was blanketed in moss and silence. The stone houses were crumbling. At the center stood a Gothic church, its roof caved in. No one had lived there for decades, but the air was thick with dread. "Are we sure?" Sophia asked. "The second gate is beneath the church crypt," Marta replied. "But something guards it. Inside the ruined church, with torches in hand, they descended the freezing stone stairs." Anselm clung closely to Sophia's coat, still disturbingly silent. Deep underground, the air grew heavy. The scent of dried blood, ash and charred wood choked their lungs. Then they saw them, stone statues kneeling, hands clasped in prayer. But they had no faces. "Not statues," Marta whispered. "Real people, petrified." Before she could finish her sentence, a screech pierced the darkness, like the sound of someone being flayed alive. From the far end of the corridor, a creature emerged, over 2 meters tall, wrapped in burial shrouds, hollow sockets for eyes, and a grin that stretched unnaturally across its face. "It's the gatekeeper," Marta gasped. Battle in the dark. The creature lunged with shocking speed. Sophia fired 3 shots. It didn't flinch. Marta hurled a vial of silver nitrate. The creature's face hissed and smoked. It howled, charging at them. Sophia stabbed its throat with her bayonet. No effect. Then Anselm stepped forward, his eyes glowing, chanting in an ancient tongue. The stone wall behind them split open, revealing a massive stone gate inscribed with Babylonian sigils. The creature shrieked at the sound of the words, then turned and fled, sucked into the gate as though devoured. "What's happening to him?" Sophia gasped. "That's not just Anselm," Marta said, trembling. "That's an ancient spirit inside him, but he's opened the way." The second gate. Inside the gate was a deep chamber filled with bloody altars, ancient symbols, and an eerie echo of constant weeping. At the center was a pool of dark blood, untouched by any light. "We have to seal it," Marta said. She stepped into the center, pulled out her knife, and sliced deep into her palm. Blood dripped into the pool. From the surface, blackened hands emerged, grabbing at her legs, trying to pull her in. Sophia screamed, tossing her the sacred ash they'd collected from the first gate. Marta poured the ash into the cut on her hand. The pool recoiled, then sizzled violently and exploded. The stone gate slammed shut. Marta collapsed, drained, but a faint smile curled on her lips. 1 gate left. 3 days after sealing the second gate, the remaining group, Sophia, Marta, and young Anselm, continued their journey up the Red Mountain. According to what Marta saw in her visions, this was both the beginning and the end, the location of the third gate. The path up the mountain was steep, the rocks dark, and the dense forest receded behind them. The higher they climbed, the thinner the air became, and the wind howled like the gasps of dying souls. Anselm remained silent. The boy had not spoken since the battle at the church. However, his eyes no longer held innocence, but glowed with a silvery light, as if containing the soul of another being. "He's still Anselm, but not entirely," Marta said, eyes fixed on him. "The gate has left its mark on his soul." After more than half a day of climbing rocky cliffs and mounting crevices, they reached the Red Mine, once a center for extracting red stone in the Middle Ages. The place had been abandoned for nearly a century, but legends remained. Missing miners without a trace, haunting songs echoing from the earth, and occasional sightings of headless figures wandering the tunnels. They set up a temporary camp beside a ruined watchtower. Marta consulted an old hand-drawn map to pinpoint the location of the third gate, deep inside the main mine shaft. However, on the very first night, something horrifying happened. At midnight, Sophia was awakened by scratching at the tent door, followed by growls unlike any animal. She jumped up, clutching her flashlight and knife. Outside, the faint light revealed a towering creature like a man, but covered in red scales, with arms long like monkey legs, no eyes, and a mouth stretched wide to its ears. Marta rushed out, holding up a crucifix. The creature roared and lunged at her. Sophia fired her gun. The bullet pierced its chest, blood splattered, but instead of falling, it screamed with delight, then slashed its own chest, as if performing a ritual. At that moment, Anselm stood up, radiating light, causing the creature to shrink back and dissolve into ashes. What was that? Sophia whispered, heart pounding. The guardian of the third gate, Marta replied, sweat pouring down her face. They are victims sacrificed in the 15th century, those who were buried alive to guard the mine's secrets. Now their souls have become monsters. The next day, they entered the mine. The narrow passages were pitch black, the stone walls stained with dried blood handprints. The deeper they went, the more the stone turned brownish red, as if scorched by hellfire. Suddenly, Anselm stopped, placing his hand on a large stone slab. "Here," he said, "the gate is beneath this stone. But if it opens, there will be blood. There will be sacrifice." Sophia looked at Marta, understanding. This time they needed not just a seal, but a keeper to remain on the other side forever. As they began the ritual to unseal, a sudden shock struck them. 3 strangers appeared, seemingly locals who had guarded the mine. "You must not come closer," they shouted, brandishing machetes. "Don't open it. It must not be awakened." A fierce fight broke out. Marta was wounded in the shoulder. Sophia killed 2 attackers, but the third escaped. Blood spilled across the stone floor. The gate opened. From within, a giant, decaying, but powerful arm crawled out. A colossal entity emerged, humanoid but nearly 4 meters tall, with a goat's head and dark, hollow eyes. It bellowed, a sound so piercing it shattered stone and made blood drip from Sophia's ears. Despite her injury, Marta threw the last charm at the creature. It paused, shrieked, but did not vanish. Anselm stepped forward, holding Sophia's hand, whispering, "I will go." "No, you can't. I carry the soul of the one who created the gate. I am the key to closing it. But please promise to live on, to tell this story." Then he stepped inside the gate, merging with the raging entity. A massive explosion followed. The gate slammed shut, cracked, and turned to dust. The sky above the mine brightened and the wind softened. Sophia hugged Marta as they collapsed, exhausted and in pain. But for the first time in weeks, they no longer heard whispers in their minds. No more blood flowing from the forest, no more curses echoing. They had sealed all 3 gates, but in exchange, they lost Anselm, the youngest soul, the bearer of light. Marta placed her hand on the ground. "His soul still watches over this place." Sophia nodded, wiping tears away. "We will tell the tale, and we won't let anyone forget him." On the rock face near the mine's mouth, they carved the words, "Here, a young soul buried the gate of evil. His memory will endure." The days after sealing the third gate were heavy with silence. Sophia and Marta returned to the village at the foot of Red Mountain, their bodies bruised, minds haunted, and hearts aching for Anselm. The villagers greeted them with wary eyes. Legends of the cursed mine had long overshadowed the place, but the horror was far from over. One night, as they rested in the village inn, a chilling wind swept through the room. The candle flames flickered violently, casting grotesque shadows on the walls. Sophia felt a cold breath against her neck. Suddenly, the door burst open. A figure cloaked in darkness appeared, eyes glowing red like embers. It was the escaped attacker from the mine, but now something inhuman twisted him. His skin was cracked and oozed black ichor, and his voice was a guttural hiss. "You thought it was over. The gates may be sealed, but the curse spreads," he snarled. Before they could react, he lunged forward. Sophia dodged, but Marta was grazed on the arm. The man-turned monster howled in fury and vanished into the night. Fear gripped the village. More nights followed with strange noises. Whispers, screams, and unnatural shadows lurking just beyond sight. People began disappearing. Families barricaded themselves inside. Sophia and Marta knew the curse was evolving. The gates had been sealed, but the dark power had seeped into the land itself. It sought new hosts to rise again. Determined to end it for good, they journeyed to an ancient ruined chapel, said to hold relics of a forgotten order that had once battled the darkness centuries ago. Inside the chapel's crypt, Amidst dust and broken bones, they found an ancient tome bound in human skin. The writing was in a language long lost, but Marta's visions guided her fingers. The book revealed a secret ritual. To banish the curse forever, they needed the blood of the innocent and the sacrifice of a willing soul bound by love. Sophia and Marta exchanged glances, knowing what must be done. To end the nightmare, they would need to face death themselves. As the full moon rose high, they prepared the ritual under the chapel's shattered stained glass windows. Anselm's memory burned bright in their hearts, fueling their resolve. With trembling hands, Marta began chanting the incantation. Shadows writhed, the air thickened, and the ground trembled. From the darkness, the cursed figure reappeared, now grotesquely twisted beyond recognition. It lunged, but Sophia stepped forward, offering her own blood as a token. The creature paused, eyes softening for a moment. Marta completed the chant, and a brilliant light burst forth, engulfing the chapel. When the light faded, the cursed figure was gone. The air felt lighter, the darkness lifted. Sophia and Marta collapsed, exhausted but victorious. They had paid a heavy price, but the curse was broken. For good. In the quiet aftermath of the ritual, Sophia and Marta lay weak but hopeful. The village slowly returned to life, with the dark whispers fading like a bad dream. Yet in their hearts, the weight of sacrifice lingered. News of their victory spread beyond the mountain. Scholars and mystics traveled to learn from them, hoping to understand the secrets of the cursed gates and the power that had been sealed away. Sophia and Marta knew their journey was far from over. The darkness they had faced was ancient and cunning, and though it was defeated, it was not destroyed. Together, they founded a small order dedicated to guarding the knowledge of the gates and protecting future generations from similar fates. At night, under the watchful stars, Sophia would sometimes hear the faint echoes of Anselm's voice in the wind, a reminder of the cost of their victory and the bonds forged in darkness. But life slowly healed. The villagers began to rebuild their homes and lives, planting seeds that would one day bloom into a hopeful future. Sophia and Marta's friendship deepened, their bond a testament to endurance and courage. As dawn broke over Red Mountain, a new chapter began, one of light, love, and vigilance against the shadows. Despite the fragile peace, whispers of the past lingered like shadows in the corners of the village. Strange lights flickered in the woods at night, and some villagers reported hearing voices carried by the wind. Sophia and Marta remained vigilant, aware that darkness often hides, waiting for the right moment to strike again. One evening, while reviewing ancient manuscripts, Marta discovered a forgotten prophecy, one that spoke of a hidden chamber beneath the mountain, a place even darker than the gates they had sealed. It hinted at a power that could either save or doom the world. Determined to protect their home once more, Sophia and Marta gathered the remaining team. Their faces were worn with fatigue but hardened by resolve. This new mission would test everything they had learned about fear, trust, and sacrifice. As they prepared to descend into the unknown depths, each of them knew that the path ahead was fraught with danger, but the future of their village, and perhaps the world, depended on their courage. The descent was grueling. The narrow tunnel was damp and winding, the air thick with the scent of earth and decay. Each step echoed ominously as the team ventured deeper, their lanterns casting trembling shadows on jagged walls. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath their feet. Rocks tumbled from above, forcing them to scramble for cover. Amidst the chaos, Marta's lantern shattered, plunging her into darkness. A chilling whisper echoed, "You cannot escape." Sophia rushed to her side, gripping her hand tightly. They pressed onward, every heartbeat a battle against rising fear. Deeper still, they found the hidden chamber, a vast cavern pulsing with a strange, eerie glow. In the center, an ancient altar carved with runes shimmered faintly. As they approached, a cold wind swept through the cavern, carrying voices of the lost, pleading for release or revenge. The team realized this chamber held the source of the ancient darkness, a power more terrible than anything they had faced. They prepared for the fight of their lives. The battle erupted with terrifying intensity. Shadows twisted and lunged like living beasts, their howls echoing through the cavern. Sophia wielded the ancient blade they had recovered, its silver edge gleaming with a light that pushed back the darkness. Marta chanted protective incantations, her voice steady despite the chaos. Around them, the team fought bravely, but the malevolent force was relentless, striking with claws of shadow and waves of chilling cold. Blood was spilled, wounds were suffered, but they held their ground. Sophia's sword cut through tendrils of darkness, each strike weakening the entity at the altar. Suddenly, a piercing scream split the air. One of their own had fallen. Heart pounding, Sophia surged forward with renewed fury, determined to end the nightmare once and for all. With a final, blinding flash, the altar shattered, releasing a burst of pure light that swept through the cavern, banishing the shadows and sealing the ancient evil away. As the light faded, an eerie silence settled over the cavern. The oppressive darkness had lifted, replaced by a calm that felt almost unreal. The team gathered, exhausted and battered, but alive. Sophia knelt beside the shattered altar, her fingers tracing the ancient runes now dimmed. Marta whispered a prayer of gratitude, her eyes reflecting a mixture of relief and sorrow for those lost. Outside, dawn was breaking. The village would awaken to a new day, free from the shadow that had haunted it for centuries. Though scars remained, both visible and hidden, the survivors knew they had broken the cycle of terror. The ancient evil was sealed once more, and hope was restored. Together, they vowed to protect their home and remember the sacrifices made, ensuring that the darkness would never return. The journey back to the village was quiet, the weight of what they had faced pressing heavily on everyone. Each step was a reminder of the lives lost and the horrors that had almost consumed them all. As they approached the outskirts, familiar faces emerged, villagers who had feared the curse for generations. Their eyes filled with hope as they saw the survivors return, a flicker of light in the darkness. Sophia shared the story of their battle, the sealing of the ancient evil, and the sacrifices made. The village elders nodded solemnly, knowing the peace they had long prayed for had finally arrived. But the scars ran deep. The team vowed to remain vigilant, guarding the secrets of the past while rebuilding their lives. In the quiet moments, they remembered those who had fallen, their bravery etched forever into the heart of the village. Life in the village slowly returned to normal, yet an unspoken bond united the survivors. They gathered often to share memories, honoring the fallen with stories, songs, and quiet moments of reflection. Sophia found herself changed, her once restless spirit now tempered by the weight of experience. She became a guardian of the village's history, passing down the tale of darkness and light to the younger generations. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Marta approached Sophia with a worn, ancient journal, the key to understanding the deeper mysteries that still lingered beneath the surface. Their quest was far from over. The ancient journal revealed secrets long buried, rituals, warnings, and the names of others who had faced the darkness before. Each page seemed to pulse with a faint, eerie glow, as if the words themselves held power. Sophia and Marta realized the evil was part of a larger cycle, one tied to the land and its hidden history. To truly protect their home, they would have to confront not just the spirit they'd sealed, but the source of its power. Together, they began deciphering cryptic symbols and preparing for the challenges ahead. Their bond strengthened. They knew the road would be dangerous, but necessary. The fight for peace was far from over. Days turned into weeks as Sophia and Marta delved deeper into the ancient mysteries. Strange phenomena followed them. Whispers in the wind, shadows flickering at the edge of vision, and dreams that blurred the line between reality and nightmare. Yet, their determination never wavered. With each revelation, they grew stronger, their understanding sharpening like a blade ready to cut through the darkness. In a final ritual beneath the full moon, they called upon the power of the land itself, binding the source of evil forever. The ground trembled, light burst forth, and a peace unlike any before settled over the village. Their fight was over, but the story of courage, sacrifice, and hope would live on. The village awakened to a new dawn, bathed in golden sunlight and filled with a quiet joy. The air felt lighter, the shadows no longer lurking. Sophia and Marta were hailed as heroes, but they knew the true victory belonged to everyone who had faced the darkness and refused to give in. As the seasons changed, the land healed and the villagers rebuilt, stronger and more united than ever before. The past was remembered, the future embraced, a testament to resilience and hope. Years passed, and the tale of the cursed land became legend, a story told around fires, a warning and a source of strength. Sophia and Marta, now elders, watched over the village with pride, their hearts at peace. They had turned darkness into light, fear into courage. New generations grew up hearing their story, inspired to face life's unknowns with bravery. In the end, the shadows were not just defeated, they were transformed, reminding everyone that even in the deepest darkness, hope can shine through. And so, the village thrived, forever bound by the courage of those who dared to fight. Thank you for joining us on this dark and thrilling journey. Though shadows fell and lives were lost, the courage of those who faced the unknown shines as a beacon of hope. Remember their story, a reminder that even in the darkest times, light can break through. Until next time, may you find strength in your own journey, and may hope guide your way.